And welcome back. Now, Police Minister Bheki Cele is today expected to visit Inanda in Durban. And this, of course, following the killing of 3 women on Saturday. The 3 were killed in a drive-by shooting in which 5 others were also wounded. The attack happened at a meeting where people were selecting an ANC candidate to represent their ward in the forthcoming local government elections. And it has once again sparked fear among many about more political violence to follow in the highly contested province, as it happens as political parties are still deciding on their final local government candidates list to represent them at this year's local government elections. And of course, we are also going to be looking at this a little further. Scheduled to be held on the 1st of November. That's when we go to the polls. There will be a lot more coverage here on SABC about all of this. So to talk to us more about the history of political killings, especially in KZN, and of course this year's hotspots, we're joined by Professor Bheki Mngomezulu from the University of the Western Cape's Department of Political Science. And of course, Professor, we are glad to have you. Thank you so much for being with us here on Morning Live.
Thank you for having me, Sakina, and good morning to your listeners.
Professor, the drive-by shootings from this past weekend, of course, it is a chilling event and it does send shockwaves, not just through the country and in political circles, but it raises a lot of questions about the province of KwaZulu-Natal and the political volatility that has been sort of a trademark of this particular province. Let's talk about that and why it seems to be that KwaZulu-Natal sees a lot of political violence.
No, thank you very much for that question, Sakina. Honestly speaking, this is very concerning. Because if you recall what happened on the build-up to the 1994 first general election, there was bloodshed in KwaZulu-Natal, and there were a number of contributing factors. One, you had what we referred to as intra-party violence, whereby people were fighting from within the ANC alone or within the IFP at that time. But then you also had the outsiders who turned the ANC and the IFP against each other, and they were killing people in the name of the ANC and in the name of the IFP, which was very unfortunate. But then what has happened after 1994 is that we have seen parties having their own internal squabbles, and then in the process, they've in fact been involved in either selling out one another or carrying out these killings. And then to make matters worse, there are people who have their own differences in their own places, more especially coming from places outside of eThekwini, and then we see that showing up in the form of what we call hostile violence, and then of course political violence and a couple of other issues. And to crown it all, you also have criminal elements who then use the opportunity, knowing that when they kill someone around the election time, it will appear as if these are political killings, even if they are not. So it's a very complex situation. But then your question still remains as to why is KwaZulu-Natal so adversely affected compared to other provinces. That one is a very critical question and very difficult to answer, because we see these things happening more frequently in KwaZulu-Natal than we see it happening in other places.
We had in 2018, of course, the Mwerane report that was released that had looked into some of the causes of these political killings in KwaZulu-Natal over the years. And if we look at that report, its recommendations, have they been implemented, and has that made any sort of difference in terms of the violence and the landscape in KwaZulu-Natal?
You know what, Sakina, truth be told, when the Mwerane Commission was put together by then Premier Mr. Mngcono, Babulisi Mngcono, I was one of the skeptics. And the reason why I was so skeptical about that commission was that I didn't see a situation whereby witnesses would come forth and give evidence to the commission and then provide all the reasons, because they feared for their own lives. So for as long as you don't get the truth of the matter, you are basically going to speculate indefinitely. And then the report was put together, and then the recommendations were made. But in terms of implementation, I don't think, first of all, that that report was very useful. And the reason I'm saying that is because the kind of information that it put together was not enough to assist the police and the NPA in terms of prosecutions, because there was insufficient evidence occasioned by the fact that people feared for their own lives and therefore could not divulge the truth. We still don't know why people are being killed. We still don't know why a number of politicians in KwaZulu-Natal have been killed simply because the truth has evaded us. And that is a serious concern.
So what needs to be done, Professor Mngomezulu, to get to the bottom of this? What is it that political parties, for example, can do in order to assist the situation?
You know, Sakina, this is one of the most concerning issues. For me, the starting point will be with the political parties themselves. They do have members at different levels up to the branch level. One thing that needs to happen, in my view, is political education. Because you can solve at least one part of the problem where we have intra-party killings. You can solve that through political education by making people know that if I kill you, then tomorrow I'll be the victim. So in other words, I can't kill 5 people in order to get a position of being a mayor or a position of being a councillor, because tomorrow I will be on the receiving end. If that can be still down to the members of the party, I think we can eliminate one problem. And also to then tell the party members that if we project a divided a picture to the public, chances are those who are our political enemies are going to use the opportunity and eliminate us one by one. And even the thugs are going to use the opportunity to eliminate us one by one. So for me, the starting point is political education by the same political parties, not just the ANC, but all political parties. So that will be one point of departure. Because then if you eliminate that problem, you are most likely going to reduce the number of deaths that we have witnessed over the years.
And you say that, Professor Mngomezulu, and it seems like a plausible and even, you know, a good start for political parties to try and address this issue. But if we think about it, this has obviously become a game of life and death, literally, because for those who have been in positions of power, who may not have anything else to fall back on, this is it for them. It's the be-all and end all. So how do you then, you know, appeal to the minds, the psyche of people who may have lived large up until this point and now are facing a very real threat, a very real possibility of that largesse being taken away from them?
You know what, Sakina, you have hit the nail on the head. I once talked to some of the political leaders in the province in a particular forum, and I asked them a simple question: why do you think you guys kill one another? And they looked at me with stunning faces. And then I provided them an answer. I said, the main reason why you guys kill one another is because you don't have a fallback position. If you don't have any other option except politics, then obviously you will kill as many people as possible in order to remain in politics or in order to remain in those positions. And my plea was that why don't we say that our elder members of our political parties didn't have an opportunity to go to school or to start businesses because of the politics of the time. So let's allow those ones to exit the stage nicely, but then guarantee them that they are going to be safe once they leave the office. But then make sure that the incoming leaders are the ones who either have the requisite skills, they also have other options like businesses, or they have education. If you do that, then if I lose an election this year, I still have a chance next year. But then if I have nothing else except politics, then of course there is a problem. Because truth be told, people are no longer joining politics in order to serve their people. They are joining politics because for them, that is a job creation approach. So without politics, some of them have nothing. So there is a lot that needs to happen. But then in doing that, we have to distinguish between the elder members of the party who at the time faced circumstances that didn't allow them to have other options. Those who are young, they should be encouraged to have other options so that if they don't win an election, they can do other things and come back in the next election. So I think that is what needs to happen, because if we don't do that, we'll keep talking like we're doing right now and people will be dying like flies. And then, of course, our country will be labeled in a negative manner. And it doesn't help us at all. Not the victims and not even the perpetrators.
One could argue that the scenario that we are talking about right now is, of course, not peculiar to KwaZulu-Natal. We see this across all provinces. However, what is it that drives this violence to resolve these problems in KwaZulu-Natal? Well, we have seen some violence in Mpumalanga as well, but particularly in KwaZulu-Natal. Why is it so different? Why are the solutions or the intended solutions seemingly so violent?
That will go back to history. You know, historically, Zulus have a way of doing things. If they want to fight, they fight all out. And if you have angered them, of course, they are going to retaliate. And in this case, it's a complex situation because we may have an impression that it's Zulus killing one another, when the reality of the matter is that is not the case. You can find Zulus killing one another, but you'll also find people coming from outside KwaZulu-Natal committing murders in KwaZulu-Natal. How does this happen? If, for example, I live in Mpumalanga, I live in the northwest, I live in Limpopo, then I commit crime that side, and then I run to KZN, running away from my crimes, and then I'm killed in KZN during an election time. People are going to associate my killing with a political violence, when in fact I am a criminal. In a way, I deserve to die, quote unquote. So some of the situations that appear to be obvious are not necessarily obvious. It's true that most of the killings are happening in KwaZulu-Natal, but then because even the Moerane Commission could not come to a conclusive answer as to why these killings are happening, we'll keep speculating. And you know, Sakina, that if you don't have the truth, people will always provide you with different responses, and not all of those responses are helpful. Like in this case, if there is violence in KwaZulu-Natal, then people would say Zulus are killing one another. That's a wrong approach, because if you were to dig down, you will find that, in fact, it's not just Zulus killing one another, but the situation is more complex than that. Unfortunately, then, when you try to conduct an investigation using those formal structures like the Moerane Commission and a couple of other options, you are not likely to come to the bottom of this. What would have assisted us in this case would be when our intelligence officers planned people all over the country, not just in KwaZulu-Natal, to pick up some of these things from the bottom, so that by the time they happen, we know exactly what is at play, than just making general assumptions and saying there is violence in KwaZulu-Natal because Zulus are violent, which sends a wrong message, and in fact, it's not helping us as a country in terms of addressing the issue.
And just finally, Professor Mngomezulu, earlier this year, the Interministerial Committee looking into killings, political killings in KwaZulu-Natal, they said that the province had seen a decrease in political killings. In 2016, there were 31 murders reported, only 21 murders reported for 2021 by June. We know that number has since gone up. What have been your observations in this regard? And also, what would be the way forward? What would you advise?
No, it should be commended that the numbers are going down. In fact, they shouldn't be there in the first place. But you should applaud the fact that the numbers are going down. And then one of the questions we should be asking ourselves would be, what have we done differently in order to reduce those numbers and capitalize on that? Because it's pointless for us to keep mourning and groaning. What we should be doing is look at a particular incident, look at how many people died in that incident, and then take a lesson from that. Yesterday, I was talking to other people, and early this morning, I was talking to some of your colleagues in the media space, saying that one of the things that need to happen is that there should be political education. And I made some examples as to how that would assist us as a country. And I was saying that if you have done something which worked for you, capitalize on that. But then if you've done something and it didn't produce the results you intended, of course, discard that and look for other options. But then most importantly, if you have a violence crowded in a particular province, look at other provinces as to what is it that they are doing correctly, take lessons from that and see if those lessons can be applied in your own province, then you are most likely to going to address some of these issues. You cannot solve all of these problems overnight, Sakina, but at least we have to do something and then ensure that the current situation does not stay with us indefinitely.
Professor Mngomezulu, thank you so much for your time, and no doubt we'll be speaking more as we are in election season, good and proper. That was Professor Bheki Mngomezulu, Professor of Political Science at the University of the Western Cape, talking to us about the worrying trend of KZN's political killings as we head to the local government election polls on the 1st of November. With that, it's just after 7. Let's bring you the latest news.